good? What's good? It's your boy Don Bucks, your host of Rappin Dough. And y'all know this the home of finance and business conversations, man. From a black perspective. So I got a couple things I wanna let go tonight. You know, I come with that fire. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was what's going on. It's a lot going on out here, y'all. A lot going on in regards to, like, for one, our sleep schedule, B. Our sleep schedule is all over the place. Now, for me, my sleep schedule been messed up for a minute. Like, this dates back to college. Like, when I was in college, like, it was late nights, early mornings. You feel me? So, my sleep schedule been a little bit different for a while. So, I'm kind of used to it, but this is on a whole nother level now. I've been going to sleep like 10 o'clock in the morning, like after being up all night. You feel me? Like, so it's a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? You know, kids at home with their parents, they gotta monitor their schoolwork. They gotta make sure they signing in to their virtual classrooms and all that. And actually, it's reports out there that kids ain't been signing in like they supposed to been signing in. Like, so it's a lot of that going on. But yeah, sleep schedule is all messed up. So just I ain't gonna say messed up. It's different than what it used to be. Like, you know, when you had a job or when you was working your job, let's say you're not essential and you home, right? So you used to getting up 8 o'clock in the morning, you used to going to bed at a certain time, and now, you know, you ain't got to do that. You just your dealings in your house and your life period has changed. You feel me? So y'all kind of getting a taste of entrepreneurship life, because, you know, we wake up when we want to wake up. You know what I'm saying? Like, me personally, I haven't woken up, you know, when somebody else wanted me to wake up for at least 3 years now. So y'all getting a taste of entrepreneur life. Like, you get to wake up when you want to wake up. This is for those that don't have kids. You get to wake up when you want to wake up, go to sleep when you want to go to sleep. And it's a whole nother dynamic, you know what I'm saying, as far as, you know, how you think about time and how you think about waking up and going to sleep. It's like different. So y'all kind of getting a taste of that. Like, you know, if you don't have any kids, you're getting a taste of not having to wake up when somebody else wants you to wake up. But yeah, it's a lot of that going on. I've been seeing that come across my timeline. Crazy. Like, people up 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. Like, I be up to like I said, 10 in the morning, like, from being up all night. But it is what it is. It's a new norm for everything. We haven't seen nothing yet. It's a lot that's going to change when society do open back up, like the classrooms. Like, I don't even know if kids going to be able to sit next to each other, like, whether masks going to have to be worn, temperature's going to have to be taken. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, stuff is going to look different. You go in restaurants, ain't no table right next to you no more, probably. Like, all that's going to change. So we got to get ready for a new norm. Everybody trying to race to get outside, and we don't know what to expect yet. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I got mixed feelings about the reopening of everything. I don't know how I feel about that right now. But I do know, you know, this coronavirus is a little interesting. It's interesting how many people done died. But when you do a little bit of research, right, 7,000 to 8,000 people die every day on a regular, just because it's time for them to die. It was like 7,000 to 8,000 people die every day before the virus. But we don't even talk about them people, them deaths, right? That's 7,000 to 8,000 people that die every day. So let's just say 7,000. In a week, 49,000 people done died. And this is on a daily basis, just from common causes like natural deaths. People die every day, but we don't talk about that. 7,000 to 8,000 people though die every day, just from natural causes. But that's a sensitive topic. I'm gonna get off that, but just think about that. Put that into your hat and think about that. But another thing I wanted to talk about was the small business loans that's been going out, and they called it the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Plan, right? In which, small businesses qualify for this. And my thing is how not so small businesses been qualifying for these loans, right? So answer me this. It's crazy. Now you got all these businesses that need this money, that need to keep their employees on the payroll, right? How did the Lakers qualify for a small business loan? How did the Lakers qualify for a small business loan? I'm gonna say that again. How did the Lakers come on, man? This is the stuff I be talking about. So not only are we, I talked about this before, we like to be reactionary instead of being proactive. Like when stuff hit the fan, now we want to scramble and try to get shit together, right? I think it trickled down from the top, like, because the country as a whole was reactionary. We wasn't ready for this. Like, we wasn't ready for this. We steady doing shit like giving companies like the Lakers funding. Like, that's not a small business, right? But here it is, when everything going crazy, we ain't got enough medical supplies, we ain't got enough masks, we ain't got enough this, we ain't got enough that. You know what I'm saying? But you just gave the Lakers a couple $100 million or whatever you gave them, 50 million. I don't know what they gave them, but it was something crazy. They shouldn't even qualify for the small business loan anyway. Like, they should have mad bread in the bank already. Like, those are $1 billion companies. Like, this is the shit I be talking about. So this is probably why on a large scale most people are reactionary, because the damn country we live in is reactionary. We wasn't ready for this by a long shot. You know what I'm saying? So that is one of the reasons why we're in the position that we in. Because instead of allocating funds to more essential stuff like the hospitals and other essential type businesses, you want to give millions of dollars to the Lakers. You know what I'm saying? Shifting gears, man. I'm about to give you some more heat. One thing I wanted to talk about was, I like investing. I can't implore my people enough to invest your money. People always want to be rich and they talk about money, blowing money fast, this, that, and the third, but don't want to talk about how to get there. Like, we don't want to, I'm not going to say we don't want to, we have a challenge with trying to do stuff on our own or trying to reinvent the wheel. Like, if you study what rich people do and do that, we're going to eventually be rich too, right? So just like anything else, you study, you want to be a basketball player, you study all the basketball greats, you practice, you look it over, you own it every day. Same thing with building wealth, right? And I just so happen to be fortunate enough to be exposed to this information, in these different ideologies, because unlike a lot of people that look like me in the hood, don't necessarily have a business owner father that they close with. You know what I'm saying? So I was fortunate enough to have that, right? So now here I am giving you the game, some of the ideologies of being an entrepreneur, being an investor, and things of that nature. So one thing that separates, I'm gonna go through a list of things. The long-term investor versus the short-term investor. See, the long-term investor, because some people, a lot of people actually always ask or insinuate that the stock market is slow money. But if you know the old adage, slow money is sure money, right? So there's different ways to invest though. Like, you can be a short-term investor, you can be a trader, you can do forex, you can do all that. But I don't teach that. I teach long-term investing right now. That's what I teach because that's what I know. I know long-term investing because if you do some research based off of my research and my experience of over 10 plus years, the long-term investor sees more benefits than the short-term investor in terms of tax benefits, in terms of the compounding of interest effect. Now, long-term investors, they are different from short-term investors in terms of how they look at the day-to-day, week-to-week movements of the stock market. See, the long-term investor looks and does his research on the companies that he wants to buy, because you're not just buying shares. In essence, you're buying a company. You're buying a piece of a company, right? So they do the research on the company. They know how the business works, and they know how the money is made, right? So when they make their purchases, when they invest into a company, they are strong in their spot. Like, they're confident in their choice, in their purchase. Now, you can't predict the market, but you can feel more confident based off of your research. So if you do research, you don't have to time the market. You don't have to try to predict the market, because you done read up on the company. You know the financials. You know how the business works. So you're more strong in your thinking and your decision to buy this company. So you're not looking at every day, every week, how the stock market moves up and down, because the stock market is always going to move up and down. Why? Because it's based off of expectations and buyer and seller sentiment, which is basically how they feel about the business. And that can change day to day, right? But in the long term, the long-term investors always are more beneficial than come out with more benefits than the short-term investor. Now, in regards to prices going up and down, because some people might want to say, "Hey, Don, so why do prices go up and down?" Well, prices go up and down, like I said, based off of sentiment, expectations. So, for instance, you're not the only investor in the stock market. There's millions of people that's buying and selling for whatever reason on the stock market. So that's why buying and selling moves the stock market. It goes up and down because there's a lot of buying and selling going on. There's millions of people buying and selling. So that's why the numbers go up and down. So when the stock price goes up, that means people feel good about these companies. So they're buying them, which raises the value of the stock price. When the stock price goes down, that means there's a lot of people selling their stock, and that may be for whatever reason as well. When the stock goes, one of the reasons why people sell their stock, being that there's millions of people, there's millions of different reasons why. So one reason may be for tax benefits. One reason may be out of fear, which is running rampant all over the market. So that's why there's a lot of selling. There's a lot of depreciating in value because there's sellers. There's a lot of sellers because of the fear, and simply inexperience, because you got a lot of people that just don't know. Just because there's an inverse relationship when investing, and that's what I had to learn over these years, that there's an inverse. Because I didn't start off knowing none of this stuff. Like, I had to dig in. I've been digging in, read mad articles, mad hours of watching this, watching that, reading this, reading that over the course of these 10 years. So I know that there's a lot of inexperience, there's a lot of fear uh, as of right now, as far as why stock prices are low. The expectations, like I said, people don't know what the economy, what these businesses are going to look like a year from now. So they can't even give you a solid expectation on their earnings. So that's going to keep a stock at a low price because they can't tell you my stock prices, my stocks, a piece of my company is worth $100 a share when they can't even tell you how much money they project to make next year. So prices are based off of sentiment and expectations. So like I was saying, as far as selling, people sell for tax reasons, and that goes back to the short-term and long-term investor. See, if you hold your stocks for over 6 months to a year and a day, your tax benefit, you pay 18% on your gains. Not your whole principal, but however much money you made, you pay 18%. Now, if you was to sell your stocks before that, which is a short-term investor, that's what they consider a short-term investor. If you sell them before a year, you pay what they is pretty much like an income tax because it's 30%. Now, most people pay about 30% out of their income for taxes. So if you sell your stocks before a year and a day, you're going to pay 30% on your gains. But if you hold them past a year, you pay 18% if you was to sell. So that's one benefit of being a long-term investor. You get tax benefits. And what's another reason? Oh, the fear aspect, the fear piece. So the fear piece, like I said, is an inverse relationship to when to buy and when to sell and when to hold. So when stock prices go down, after you done did this research in the beginning and honed in on why you want a piece of this company, you're strong in your spot. So all you're doing is waiting for the stock price to go down below the price you bought it, so you can buy some more of this dope company. Or at the end of the year, you're looking at how much you gained, and you can pretty much sell and take your gains, pay a little bit of taxes. But basically, what you're doing is you're not looking at it day to day as a long-term investor because you're strong in your spot. So you're not looking at it on a day-to-day basis. Like, you already know what you bought. So only thing you're looking for is the price to go below what you bought it so you can buy some more. Like, that's like seeing a pair of Jordans or a pair of Louboutins on sale. Like, they cost, let's take Lou's for example, they cost $1,200, right? But now they cost $9. You're more apt to buy more. You might buy 2 pair because they $900 now. Same thing with stocks. Like, it's a dope company, just like you knew that was a dope shoe. That's a dope company, and it goes on sale. Now you can buy twice as much of that dope company. So that's the only thing a long-term investor is looking for. You're not looking at the day-to-day movements of the market because he already know what he got. The long-term investor also takes advantage of the compounding of interest. I'm gonna get into that in a second, but the market, goes up and down, and it's kind of like it's bipolar. The market is kind of like it's bipolar. Like, the black community, I'm pretty sure you've seen a toxic relationship, right? And you might have a female or a male that may be, might exhibit the toxic traits, right? So one day they happy, one day, um, one day they cussing their partner out, right? So if the partner knows that he's in love or she's in love and ain't going nowhere, right? For the most part, they stop paying attention to, or putting energy into when they're happy or when they beefing. Like, they might be getting slapped in the head, but they know they ain't going nowhere, so they emotionally detach from, whether the person is happy or they're sad. They know they're gonna be there, right? They ain't going nowhere, so they willing to take the slaps in the head and then the kisses on the cheek the next day, right? So that's kind of like how the market is. Like, when you're an investor, you're kind of like that person that's in a relationship with this toxic person. You're in love with that company. You like that business model, and just like that person loves that other individual, right? So they know they're not going nowhere, so they emotionally detached from the day-to-day emotions of the market, i.e. that person. So they just emotionally detached from it. They're not paying attention to the day-to-day because they know they're not going nowhere. Same thing with the stock market. If you was to look at the rises and the falls of the stock market on a day-to-day basis, that's kind of like you mess around and go crazy. You go crazy wondering if that person is going to be happy today, or if they're going to give me a kiss on the cheek the next day. Like, you'll go crazy. That's too much brain energy to be exercising when you know you ain't going nowhere. Same thing with a company like, let's take AT&T for example. You know you're not going nowhere. You know it's a dope company. So why even be emotionally attached to what's going on the day-to-day basis? Whether it's up, whether it's down, whether it's up, whether it's down. Because over the long term, you're not going nowhere. And they say it's cheaper to keep them. They say it's cheaper to keep them. So that's kind of how I correlate the market. It's kind of like the market is bipolar, but you have to take advantage of those days when they're giving you a kiss on the cheek, or i.e. when the stock price drop a little bit. You take advantage of that. You buy more. You know what I'm saying? So that's my correlation on how the stock market moves. It's kind of like being in a bipolar relationship, or being in a relationship with somebody that's bipolar. You feel me? So I hope y'all can relate to that. Know somebody and kind of can grab the jewels out of what I'm saying. But another thing about the long-term investor, I think this is my last point. The last thing in regards to a long-term investor is the compounding of interest effect. Now, the compounding of interest effect is it works crazy. I think it was Albert Einstein that said compounding of interest is one of the greatest powers in the world. And to give you an example of how that works is that let's say you take, because everybody, I ain't gonna say everybody, but you got some people out there that get between let's say $7,000, maybe $8,000 on their tax return, and let's say they didn't go blow it all, and they took 5,000 of that out every year. Every year they get that 5,000, they get that $8,000, and they take 5 of it out and invest it, right? So if you took $5,000 out of your tax return every year, now we're going to take into consideration that over the course of 200 years, the stock market has returned on an average of about 10% on your money. Alright, so we're not even going to include the dividends. So not even including the dividends, if you invest 5,000 a year, like just the 5,000 from your tax return. We ain't gonna talk about, the investing that you should be doing on a consistent basis. But let's just say you took the $5,000 every year and invested it. I did the math for y'all. Over a 10-year period, and some people might say, "Oh, that's a long time from now." It actually isn't. It actually isn't, because a lot of us, well, I ain't gonna say a lot of us. I'm gonna say a lot of us. I'm gonna just speak it. A lot of us went to college and graduated about 10 years ago. Right? Now, when you look back, it probably seemed like it was yesterday. 10 years went by like that. So 10 years ago was 2010. Right? I bet you can just remember what you were doing, where you was at. It would feel like yesterday. But if you invested 5,000 between then and now, you would have $100,000 in your brokerage account right now. What would you do with $100,000? And that's 5,000 with a 10% return on your money every year. So, and we ain't even talking about the dividends yet. I ain't even gonna add them in there. But 5,000 for 10 years invested, you'll have over $100,000 in your brokerage account. So that's the second thing that the long-term investor takes advantage of. Not only the tax benefits, but also the compounding of interest. Because if you was to put that in a bank account, 10%, you seeing 0.01%. So you'd probably 5,000. You'd probably have over a little over 50,000 if you put it in a bank account. You'll have a little over 50,000 in 10 years. But if you invested in the stock market, you'll have over $100,000 right now if you did that since 2010. So that's that heat for y'all for today. Thank y'all for tuning in, and I'll see y'all next live.